Yo, what is up guys, it's your boy Shieldcoomer here, aka Sirigath, and in this video we are covering the Vortex Pinnacle 23 on the Tyrannical League. It is Tyrannical, Volcanic, bolstering, so I would say pretty easy affix week. Volcanic really most of the time is an irrelevant affix, it's just a minor nuisance. It can be sometimes very bad, to be fair, sometimes when you have to move at the exact point where you can't really afford to move and stuff like that, but overall it's just like a minor nuisance, especially compared to how annoying some of the other affixes are. And then on top of that we have Sanguine, which to be fair can be pretty bad in a sense that it does slow dungeons quite a bit, so damage starts mattering a lot more on Sanguine, because you really need to some mobs you kind of have to kill twice at certain times and stuff like that. Obviously a lot of it comes down to like tanks management and positioning and how the group handles their personal responsibility with like stuns, roots, knocks and all that good shit that people can provide. But overall it is a pretty simple affix at the end of the day, nothing too difficult to deal with. Vortex Pinnacle, right? This dungeon really starts to ramp up as you go higher in the keys. I feel like it is a dungeon where both trash and the bosses are dangerous, which I guess you could probably say for almost every dungeon, but I feel like in this one it is particularly noticeable. And I mean, as I say that, we're double pulling without any cooldowns and stuff, so but you will see here how most of this has come down to like groups proper management of resources and interrupts and stuns and externals. I mean, you notice that amazing sack on the priest, and priest is also using vampiric embrace, and just like dispels for days, and it's just like this dot, it is quite a bit of a quite something, that dot. I mean, you see how much it hurts. It really is pretty bad. You need to, very important that this dot gets dispelled almost instantly, and if it doesn't, then you need to like hard bot heal the person. And discipline priest, unfortunately not really the best at it. So it is something you gotta keep in mind regardless. It's that dot is pretty much the main factor of difficulty in this dungeon as far as trash goes, until the first boss at least. And I mean, on top of that, there's also these wind bolts that you tend to hit quite hard. They'll chuck you for about like 30% of your HP, 40, something like that. So that's not insignificant, especially the overlap between the bolts and the dot. It does get quite annoying. And then of course, since as I mentioned, Sanguine, you see like some mobs will just channel infinitely into them, and that does tend to be quite annoying. And sadly, most of the these mobs, they cannot be knocked, these big ones, so even if you do have knock in your group, not much you can do except be very careful. Here, so the main thing to be aware of is this turbulence thing. Obviously he will put this big bomb. Just don't stand in that, you will die. Well, actually I've never seen anyone get hit by it. I'm assuming since it's so big that you do die, but I actually do not know. Maybe it teleports you to another dimension or something. I wouldn't know. Never stood in it. I was just assuming it does a lot of damage, so don't stand in it, obviously. I have literally never seen anyone get hit by that since the start of the season, so don't be the first. And yeah, the thing you want to pay attention to is this turbulence. I mean, it does kind of like do this AoE pulsating damage. It does hurt quite a bit if you're not ready, so I would suggest maybe saving like a CD for that, or pull in a couple of radiances. Amazing thing about this season is that smart usage of radiance is everything. If you use your radiances like Bozo, it will get caught with your pants down and you won't have resources to kill people. But if you're using your radiances smartly, so you want to kind of like shuffle it, you want to kind of like make it so that one rotation is covered by one radiance plus your damage, and then the next one is covered by another radiance plus more damage, and so on and so on. You just have to trust your atonements to do the heavy lifting. And if you feel like they're not gonna be enough, then you need to save up 2 radiances and spam them back to back, and then do your atonement healing. But if you're relying too much on like the real healing, you know, with like flash heals and stuff. I mean, it can work. These heals are not insignificant anymore, like they were some time ago, but yeah, it's not really ideal, and you will also very quickly. Like you'll run out of mana before you can say disc, so be careful with that. It is viable. I mean, whatever it takes to keep people alive, but you can see like doing like solid 90k HPS on trash on a non-fortified week, you know, that tells you all you need to know. Like it is quite scary. You do need to be careful. Yeah, so here we played with the Frost DK, and I was basically pumping him with the PIs, and frankly, like I gotta say, Frost DK seems kind of insane right now. I have played with 2 Frost DKs so far, and both times they have top DPS meters by like 30% compared to the second person. And I mean, this one I've been feeding PIs, but in that other dungeon that I did, I wasn't even giving him PI. There was Devastation Evoker that was getting PI, and DK still out DPS'd him. It was quite something. I don't know. Might be worth, you know, pairing up with your friends if they're playing a DK, you know, just a heads up. But yeah, about this boss. So, okay. This boss is really quite easy, but you do need to be ready for the damage burst, because this boss kind of like functions on this 30-ish minute timer, which is perfect for us as discs, by the way. So every single time it does AoE, I'm pretty sure you can have your Shadow Covenant up, plus your Schism. You can do your mini ramp there, and even though I said that, I'm not kind of doing it here. But you can also use your Rupture, you can use your Power Word Barrier, if you have DPSers that have some sort of externals like AMZ, or you know, warriors which shout, some off healing from maybe like shamans or druids or priests, anything of that sort. You know, either tell them to use it or hope they're good enough players to know to use it when the shields retract, because that is basically the only damage instance that happens on this first boss fight. And I mean, you can really see that this isn't a lot of damage. I mean, it's Tyrannical week, and this guy barely even hurts. It really is not that big of a deal. And also, I want to say one more thing. Something, watching these videos back, something I'm not doing enough, and this is very important, by the way, guys. This is a really useful piece of information, in my opinion, that everybody should be doing that's playing Discipline Priest. And I actually didn't know that for quite a while. I only learned this recently. So flash kill, right? Because of the talent that gives you atonement, and like another person, obviously, because you're healing them with flash kill. That's great, right? 2 atonements for 1 cast, perfect, and you also heal 1 person. Amazing, great value. Use it. It's awesome. But it gets even better. The thing I didn't realize is that actually, when you, so you know the thing where when you heal yourself with flash heal, you get the man, what do you call it? Hold on, my brain is lagging. You get a talent that increases your damage resistance by 10%. So basically what I'm trying to say is that is insane value, especially in these cases where everybody's gonna take damage. Applying that to someone, and then you getting, so you basically get 2 atonements plus 10% damage resistance on yourself. It is really insane, guys. I strongly recommend utilizing that. It took me an embarrassingly long time to figure that out, that it works like that. I am ashamed as a main disc that I didn't know that. The entirety of the first season I was basically flash healing myself to get that buff, and I just cannot believe that it took me this long to realize that you actually get the 10% damage resistance even if you flash kill somebody else, because it basically copies onto you. So that's really cool, guys. Use it. As I said, you can like combine it with Fade if you feel like you need extra resistance for that particular moment, or if you want to, you know, combat like the rot fights where, you know, the continuous damage is just ongoing and ongoing, such as Halls of Infusion. Third boss is a great example of this, or second boss in Vortex Pinnacle, or third boss in Vortex Pinnacle. And all of these things where there's like a rot type of damage, you casting flash heal on anyone has a lot of value, because it will give you 10% damage resistance for 10 seconds. It is really good. You need to make sure you're utilizing that. 10% resistance is huge. It is such a big number. It is really strong. So yeah, that is definitely some sort of extra utility that you can use. And then I want to talk about these dragons a little bit. So no, this is not a dragon these nuts joke. These dragons are really not a joke. These are potentially the hardest. This might be the hardest trash pool of this entire expansion. For healing, even on non-fortified weeks, these dragons are an absolute menace, guys. And you can see me here, even though he's about to die, I'm still using barrier. I'm just playing it safe. I don't want to risk it. Luckily, we had a lot of damage in this group, so this didn't look that scary. But if you have to heal through two waves of the dot, it really does get dicey, guys. And do not underestimate the dragon. Please, I would also suggest, especially in a pug group, make sure you're saving your cooldowns for that. You probably will need both rupture and barrier for like if you will always get 2 dots almost, like unless your group is like absolutely blasting or saving like bloodlust or something for the dragon. So in this case, you want to make sure you have cooldowns for that. And this pack is also dangerous, by the way, but I'll get to that in a second. I want to say one more thing about the dragon. So one thing we did there good is make sure nobody's standing in the middle of the green circle. So what happens is if you're standing in the green circle, you get an HPS buff, which heals you, which is very important to counteract the dot. It is basically the mob is designed around that. So without it, people will die. So you need to be standing in the green circle. And then he'll do frontal, but the thing is the frontal never covers the entire circle as long as nobody's standing in the middle. So you want to bait frontal to the edge of the circle and then move to the other side of the circle. So by utilizing that, you can make sure that you never have to leave the circle, and you can have like 100% uptime in the circle. That is very important. And then I want to get to the bridge pack as well. So there's a couple of dangerous mobs there. There's the one that applies dot. There's also the wind bolters. There's also like one assassin. So just expect a lot of damage there as well. And since most likely you will be pretty dry on cooldowns from fighting the dragon, you just want to be kind of like, you just kind of want to make sure that there is no, you know, unpleasant surprises pretty much. Just make sure your healing is on point. Make sure that you're ready to heal people. I know this sounds weird, you know, as a healer saying like, make sure you're healing people. But what I mean by that is like, you know, as disc, you always have a choice to kind of like do more damage or heal a little bit more. Always focus obviously on healing. Like, I mean, I'm personally a healer that likes to do a lot of damage. It makes me feel better about my gameplay and stuff. But at the same time, you know, the determination, but like what determines whether you're a good healer or not is whether you can keep people alive, not your damage at the end of the day. And it is in the current expansion, really healer damage is not as significant as it was before, because the damage numbers have inflated so much and our damage numbers have not really moved. Because think about it like this. Think about it, it's simple math, right? In season 1, DPS was doing around 100k DPS overall, while we were doing like, let's say 20k. But right now, they'll easily do, even in bad dungeons, they'll do like 150 if they're good. Of course, I'm talking about higher keys. Like in lower keys, people can't do that much damage. That's normal. But you know, good DPS will do around 140 overall on most classes nowadays, at least 130, 140. And healer damage really hasn't jumped up just as much. I mean, it has a little bit, you know, it went from like, I don't know, 30 to 35k, but that's not really, it doesn't really follow, you know, speaking purely off of percentages. You know, it's maybe like what, 30% increase for us, whereas for them it's almost like 50%. So, you know, just that like inflated numbers haven't really followed up for us in this season quite yet for healers. I think big reason for that is Annex Onulet or whatever the fuck it's called, the new rings that came out in 10.7. So I think that's a big reason why. I think they probably found it like hard to balance it around that, and they probably weren't sure what they're doing. But yeah, anyway, let's focus on this boss. So this boss, absolutely horrible rot fight. It is a very unpleasant boss to heal, at least in my opinion. I strongly would suggest keeping Rupture and Barrier for the moments where you get the wind plus wave overlap. So for example, this would be yeah, great. I used it perfectly there. So Rupture is good here because you will not be able to cast. So what you want to do is you want to use your instant shields and get value out of them there.
Call the wind.
I would also highly suggest, not suggest, but urge you not to panic, which is easier said than done. Don't worry, like this boss makes everyone panic, I think. It's a very stressful fight for healing. Do not panic, do not overuse your radiances. You will see towards the end of the fight here, I will actually drop a few people. Whether that's my fault or like collective fault, we can debate that, but people will die towards the end of the fight, and I will tell you why exactly. Like I'll explain like why that happened precisely. But yeah, it's just very important here. You can see here, like the only reason why this got sketchy is because two of them stayed in bad winds for a very long time. It was DK and Priest. I don't know if you saw. You can see the debuffs on my frames, so you can see when they're red, you're in bad winds. And I'm not blaming them. Don't get me wrong. Like of course, sometimes it's just hard to find the winds. You know, it's hard to see. It's a very chaotic fight, especially for healing. As I said, like the only thing I'm doing is looking at frames and stuff. And here, for example, would be a great point for like some big defensive, but we just didn't have anything here, and people will get chunked, especially jumping. One thing that's very important, guys, is not to jump in bad winds, because then you will just stay longer in bad winds, you will take more damage, and you will end up like suffering even more. So it's very I very highly recommend moving to the good winds first and then doing the jump. This is very important, and it's almost like a rule that you should follow, but of course it's easier said than done. Sometimes you just don't have the time to do it all on time. And here obviously, you know, this priest really starts shining with his rot fights once the bosses drop below 20, because then we get access to that Shadow Word Death, which honestly heals quite a lot. And here, you know, just power word life. I'm trying to keep everybody alive. I'm waiting for that radiance proc that I'm having, but it's just not coming back on time, and it did, but a little bit too late, and you know, it's just losing that rhythm a little bit and people dying. But we made it. It wasn't pretty, but we actually did do it. 120k HPS, actually not really the greatest, not really that strong. We can do much better, but with so much movement, it is harder. It is really hard to do it with that much movement and with the jumps and all. So overall, I think, you know, decent job. Could have been better. Wasn't bad.
Crashing stone. Greater heal. Rally.
Right, so this trash pack, I mean, one thing to keep in mind is this trash pack is kind of dangerous, but you do need to keep in mind, like, crashing stone obviously is a big AoE damage. You kind of wanna counteract it with your radiances, and you can also preemptively like apply rapture. Right now I'm playing Aegis of Rat and the like the following talent. So basically the shields get a 30% increase in value, but they also decay, which essentially means that you want to use them actively as the damage is coming and not too much preemptively, like I would suggest without the talent. So that's kind of like a minor difference. I'm just trying out this build because I've seen like a lot of top discs play it, so I just wanted to give it a go, and I quite like it. I'm not really sure, actually. I'm kind of conflicted. I think the other one is also pretty good with that increases like the solace and the rupture, but yeah, I'm conflicted. I'm not sure. This is a good, I think, build that gives us a little bit more HPS, which I guess is, you know, the bottleneck at the moment anyway. As I've said previously, our DPS really does not matter that much. Like, as a disc, you really have to be like trying hard not to get like 30k average, you know, like overall, I mean, not average. Like 30k to do as disc is, it just comes very passively. Like you don't even have to try too much and you will get it. Maybe 30k is overdoing it. Let's say 25k you can do like passively, yeah, I'd say. Just by applying dots and stuff without even worrying about like Twilight Equilibrium and all of that. But if you follow my advice, you know, I mean, I say this almost every key, but make sure that your Twilight Equilibriums are buffing your Purge the Wickeds, guys. That is very important. It really is. There's no other way to put it. It is insanely important that you do that, because if you do not, then you will lose out on a lot of damage. Basically, you will lose out on a lot of damage and a lot of passive healing. So you will have to heal more actively, and you will have to like lose even more damage because of that, consequently, which is not worth it. But yeah, as you can see here, like, you know, this pack honestly on non-fortified weeks is not that scary. Just make sure you can use Rupture, even Barrier.
Rally.
Make sure you have like a Radiance or two saved for that. I would strongly suggest that, like 2 instant Radiance saved there. It makes that pack almost like borderline free. You can use your Shadow Covenant and then blow the Halo as well, or Divine I mean, if you're playing Divine Star, that will do as well. You know, just make sure people are a little bit stacked, make sure you're hitting them, so you not only get, like, you know, the atonement values, but also the direct healing from the star. And one more thing I would say is just heal people, right? Like just heal people. Don't be trying to spread dots on that pack in particular. On that pack you don't really want to focus too much on your atonement healing, because it's a very bursty and very short lasting pack, so applying dots is not worth it. You don't have enough globals to apply dots to multiple targets. Maybe 1 dot plus penance, and that's about it, and then focus on healing. And of course, like, if you manage to do it, I mean, good for you, good job. You're probably better than me then, but in that case you're probably not even watching this video to learn, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I wouldn't suggest it. I personally go full heal mode, like heal bot on that pack in particular with the sparks. They're very dangerous, so you just want to make sure people are staying alive, because the best way to heal less on that pack is that things die quicker. Honestly, so I mean, I always say this, like, the biggest way to make healer's job easier is to kill things faster. That's just the way it is, because, you know, I mean, especially for us as discs, mana is a resource that does matter quite a bit. So yeah, and yeah, this pack is dangerous, by the way. So even on non-fortified weeks, you can see. And why is it dangerous? Well, there's 2 reasons. It's because Crashing Stone will do AoE, and there's 2 of them. So if they do overlap, they will not overlap because the dungeon isn't designed for them to overlap. But you do need to heal quickly. You can see here, like, there's only like 2 seconds difference. You do need to top people up again, especially on fortified weeks. This is a killer. You need to have like CDs for every rotation, but we'll talk about it when I do a fortified key. Let's not get into it too much. But yeah, you just want to make sure you have big healing after the Crashing Stone comes, so don't waste your Radiances. As I said, Radiances, treat Radiances this season as like as almost like a meaningful cooldown. Obviously don't keep them, like, you want to use them. They're insane value because they also apply very long atonements, which saves you mana in the long run and all of that. But don't waste them, right? Don't cast them when people are full. Don't do that. It's very scary, because then you might not have them when you need them. It's very good to kind of like know when you need Radiances and when you don't, which comes from knowing dungeons. And final boss, I mean, Asaad, one of the hardest bosses of the expansion. Very difficult. Make sure that you are fully committed to DPSing the ad as well, I would suggest. And also have ad targeted, because essentially, and there I made a mistake. I shot my penance before, and I also failed the jump. That was quite embarrassing. But yeah, make sure that you have ad targeted. Why? Because people will be nuking ad as fast as possible, which means you will fall into the execute threshold, which will allow you to top people up by simply pressing Shadow Word that, and that is very important. That's like one really important thing that you need. And on this fight, you just depend on your DPS a lot. If they don't do a good job, you will probably not end up beating this boss very easily, I would say, if at all. But it is definitely, yeah, it is definitely a boss that is kind of like beatable at the moment. As you can see, it is pretty good. And also, like, one more thing I want to say is, you know, trying to save your penance for the moment when you have to jump is really good. Quite a lot of times people do this static cling or whatever it's called during the Skyfall Nova moments, and when that happens, you want to make sure that you have the ability to jump. So don't be like hard casting something like I did on the first ad. If you remember, that was a mistake. I was trying to get off Radiance, and if I didn't, I think people would die, but at the same time I should have been dead there as well. I actually am not sure why I didn't die there. We can take a look back, and maybe I had some defenses running or something, but you want to avoid getting the dot up because you will most likely die, and then things get very difficult. And here I applied 2 paint subs. Whether this is a good play or not, I guess it's up to debate. I sometimes like to apply what we kind of like refer to as like a, you know, blanket healing, or rather blanket defensive, like preemptively putting a pain sub on someone. It is also a very good idea to just save the pain sub for the overlap when somebody gets chain lightning during the add up. So this, for example, now, you know, luckily it went on DK, but let's say if it went on us or a hunter and I had no pain sub, that could have been that. So maybe saving it for the overlap is a better idea. I'm actually not sure, but I usually try to have something for every one of the ads. If not mine, then from group, you know, in a sense of, you know, AMZs, off healing, and so on and so on. And luckily, I mean, you know, a lot of help comes here as well from the Shadow Priest and Holy Pala. Not too much, but, you know, enough help comes from them, enough to matter. Here I'll probably barrier. Yeah, I barrier here. And it's just like a standard, you know, kind of like defensive rotation. You just kind of have to set this up for yourself. And again, I'm saying, you know, make sure you have ad targeted. You want to make sure that that's happening because you want to have that shadow word that available to you when you need it. So also not a bad idea to like maybe not use it on the boss right before the ads. So that was maybe my bad a little bit. Maybe, you know, if I saved it, then healing this would have been definitely easier. And maybe this guy lives, but it is what it is. And the danger of like your DPS dying during the add up is like double in a way, because not only like is it bad that somebody died, right? Because, you know, you might not have a CR. We had 2 CRs here, but you might not. But it's also the fact that they will just not be able to kill the ad sometimes fast enough, and people will just melt. It's pretty bad, so make sure you're topping everybody up, and that's the boss. I mean, it's really hard like to explain how to fight this boss. You just kind of need to practice it a little bit. It is pretty difficult though. It is pretty difficult. This is one of the hardest bosses, I think, of the entire season to heal. Really challenging, but damn, it feels fulfilling when you do it. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Big Ryo there, by the way. Plus 21. You don't see that very often. I rarely get more than 5 Ryo nowadays when I do a key. Getting 21 from 1 key is pretty insane. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You know, let me know what you think in the comments. If you like it, feel free to like it, feel free to subscribe, and you know, hope to see you again on the next one. Bye bye.